For context, this video will be using information from the original Mobile Suit Gundam anime from 1979. It won't be addressing anything brought up from any old games or manga that include this battle. With that being said, let's get right into this video. The Battle of Jaburo was the final straw that forced most of Zeon's forces off of Earth and back into space. Due to the Antarctic Treaty signed after the Battle of Loom, Zeon could no longer do the funny, so they had to resort to using more conventional tactics. They launched several landings on Earth and managed to capture several Federation bases in order to assist in war production. Zeon's engineers had already designed several suits specifically made for terrestrial combat in order to help out their ground campaign. Suits such as the MSO-7B Goof and the MSO-9 Dom were already being produced and distributed to ground forces around the planet, but Zeon still lacked suits for aquatic combat. Several suits and armors were already being prototyped for this purpose, but most of them would remain incomplete or be unable to be sent to the front line in time for sortie. This was because Colonel Char as Noble kinda jumped the gun and decided to launch an early assault on Jaburo. Char had been tailing the White Base ever since they started crossing the oceans after Operation Odessa, which probably needs its own videos or sets of videos to break down all of the events that happened. On November 29th UC 0079, the White Base arrived at Jaburo, the Earth Federation's main headquarters. Because he was tailing the White Base, Char managed to find one of its hidden entrances that led inside. Based on this information, he immediately wanted to capitalize on it before the Federation could react and launch an offensive. California Base, the main production facility building suits for an inevitable assault on Jaburo, was forced to scramble whatever it had on hand in order to send to the sortie. Because of this, only a few suits were able to be sent, as the rest were either not built yet or not fit for combat. The suits that were able to be sent consisted of MSM-04 Akgais, which are already being used for infiltration and reconnaissance, a few MSM-03 Gogs, and an MSM-10 Zok. Alongside this, they had also sent a complementary force of new MSM-07 Zagoks, which would make up most of the amphibious assault team. As for the land forces, Doms, Goofs, and Zaku-2s were being scrambled for sortie from nearby ground bases to assist in drawing fire from the amphibious assault. Despite these limitations, the attack still commenced, with Colonel Char as Noble leading the aquatic assault. Every suit deployed during the sortie was to be airdropped, causing them to be relatively vulnerable on the way down. Even with fighters in the sky, several suits and carriers were shot down before they could even retaliate due to a vast array of concealed batteries and Federation interceptors. With the initial drop complete, whatever remaining suits would quickly scramble to put their assault into action. As expected, the Federation focused primarily on dealing with the land suits, allowing for Char and several surviving amphibious suits to infiltrate deeper into Jaburo. Upon entering the underground base, they were immediately assaulted by the new mass-produced gyms and the White Base. Char managed to take out one of the new gyms and begin a duel with the Gundam. Though it looked like the amphibious team had the upper hand at first with their new suits, they were ultimately forced to retreat due to the White Base's forces overpowering them alongside the station defenders. The amphibious team suffered immense casualties, with Char himself being the only survivor. On the surface, the battle was decisively one-sided, unlike the amphibious team due to having to deal with the majority of the base's surface defenses. The land team were unable to make any significant progress and were ultimately routed, with any survivors being forced to retreat. Soon after the initial battle, I don't remember it being specified how long it was since, but probably sometime between a day to a week at most, Char led another mission against Jaburo. This time, it would be a covert operation with a specialized commando team using Akgais, while Char would stay in his commander type Zagok. Their goal with this operation would be to hinder or destroy the production of the new gyms being produced using the Gundam's data, alongside potential infiltration of the White Base itself. Due to the low heat signature and positioning by the commandos, they managed to infiltrate Jaburo relatively unopposed. Once inside, they would split up, with some of the commandos going after the stockpile of newly produced gyms, as Char would lead an assault once again on the White Base. The commando team managed to find the gems relatively quickly, but due to an unfortunate stroke of luck, they were discovered planting explosives by a group of orphans from the White Base. As this was an extremely critical mission for Zeon's ground campaign, they were forced to deal with the orphans, leaving them tied up to die next to the explosives as to not compromise the mission. They would soon regret this, as the children managed to escape their bindings and remove the explosives in time, along with alerting the White Base of their presence. Speaking of which, Char's assault on the White Base, while this was happening, had also failed to do much, as there was deemed too much resistance to deal with, using the small team he had brought along. With neither objectives completed, they would have to retreat, thus ending Zeon's attempts at shutting down Jaburo. These attempts were essentially a last-ditch effort from Zeon at this point in the war, as soon afterwards, California base itself would be recaptured by the Federation. This would leave only Zeon's North African forces as their only major resistance left on Earth, with many pockets of remnants scattered around the globe. Char would continue to pursue the White Base back into space, while the Federation would launch the newly revitalized Tiananmen fleet in preparation for their assault on Solomon. Many people would agree that Char was responsible for the failure of Zeon's assault on Jaburo, and while I am inclined to agree to an extent, I feel that it is a bit unfair to pin the blame solely on him for attacking earlier than expected. Zeon had already been losing a huge portion of their ground forces, especially after Operation Odessa, which succeeded in almost completely removing Zeon's presence in Europe and Asia, while also cutting off a massive portion of their resource procurement for their war effort. Jaburo was the only option Zeon had left in trying to get their foot back into the ring on Earth. If they were to postpone it, new gyms would be issued to all remaining fronts and essentially shut them down with a massive numerical advantage. It would have been the end of their ground campaign anyway, so I don't blame them for wanting to go down fighting rather than waiting for their inevitable doom. I also feel like the suits from California base would have been devastating to go up against, but would not have been able to change the outcome of the battle. The new units that would have been brought to the table if they were completed in time would have been the MSM-04G Juagu, MSM-04N Agugai, EMS-05 Ag, and MSM-08 Zagok. There are other amphibious suits potentially made at California base as well, such as the MSM-03C Hygog, but as far as I know, they weren't specifically made for Jaburo. These suits would have taken too long to produce in a reasonable amount of time to even participate in the battle, while also eating up what precious remaining resources Zeon had left on Earth as well. Some of these suits and variations, though, were eventually completed and made an appearance in some later series. And with that, I think it about wraps up my quick summary and take on the Battle of Jaburo. I don't know if I can do a video about Operation Odessa anytime soon, as there is a ton of information to break down depending on what sources you consult, with potentially all of them being canonical due to how massive the operation itself was. And with me not being fully familiar with most of said sources. Next video I plan on doing about Gundam. I plan on covering the Battle of Solomon. I will try to have it out within a couple weeks, but I might put out some other videos along with my weekly streams if I have time to work on them. With that being said, thank you for watching.